So the big question is this: how are gigging musicians like us, who don't make any money streaming, who are spending money from our own pockets, how do we treat our music careers as online businesses in a way that lets us get our music and the things we believe in out to the world, yet still remain profitable? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Jared Judge, and welcome to the Gigging Musician Podcast.
Hey, gigging musicians, it's Jared, and today I wanted to chat about music marketing, and specifically I wanted to get into the mindset of people who buy from you. So I'm talking about people who book you for their live events, or, it could even be people who want to listen to your music, or it could even be people who buy your merch or albums, that kind of thing. Also applies outside of music too, but that's beyond the scope of this podcast. Let's dive right in. So when thinking about why people buy stuff, there are a couple, we can categorize motivations into two distinct categories, and we can use those distinct categories to help craft our marketing messages, because as musicians, we're not just the technicians who lay down our beats and play music and hope that people come. We actually have to make sure that people are buying what we're selling. And so part of that is just simply the music does speak for itself, but for the most part, we have to be active marketers. We have to be the ones who are telling people about what we do, spreading the word, because if we don't, then nobody else will. We have to put in place the systems that get the word out there about how awesome our group is and how much of a fit it would be for your private event. So let's talk about those two categories that motivations typically fall into. And I got this from a marketer by the name of Russell Brunson. He influences a lot of what I do as a marketer and as a musician. He's not a musician himself, as far as I know. But the two categories of motivations that he basically says that, all humans are driven by is either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. So we've got moving towards pleasure people, which, when you're thinking about achieving a high level of something, most musicians, when we're playing with our band or practicing in the practice room, we are moving towards pleasure. We're moving towards a high level of achievement. We've got dreams and we set our sights high and we want to play these amazing gigs at things. We want to move towards the pleasure of having new gig opportunities. But on the flip side, there's also the motivation of moving away from pain. And we all are motivated by this too, just in different amounts and different criteria. But moving away from pain for us would be could sometimes be literal pain. Like when I'm playing my instrument, my hand cramps up, or, I've got arthritis now and I can't play the way that I used to. And I would just love to have that relief. Pain can also be financial, as a musician, we could be in debt, or, we just don't want to be broke anymore. That's moving away from pain. So the way that this works for getting people to book us for live events is we have to think about what kind of messages will resonate with the people who are trying to book us. If it's, for example, a wedding, if you think about a wedding, weddings typically be sources of pleasure, joy. We want to have the perfect wedding. People, when they're booking their wedding, they're trying to move towards pleasure. And so that does impact the messaging that we speak to them. Another thing, if we're playing in the bar circuit, what is the goal of a bar manager when they're hiring a band? A bar manager has one responsibility. All other things stem from this responsibility. Their goal is to make the bar money. They do that in many ways, hiring the right staff, making sure that their alcohol is stocked, and all, even hiring musicians. But when they're hiring musicians, that can be either moving towards pleasure, we want to bring your following. We want you to fill our seats so that we make a lot of money selling alcohol and food tonight. That would be a moving towards pleasure thing. But it also could theoretically be hey, this bar is in debt, and we need your music to help us get us out of that debt. But for the most part, it's moving towards pleasure. So the next time that you're putting out a Facebook post or you're writing the copy for your website, think about the motivations behind your audience. Are they moving towards pleasure or away from pain? And how can you relate to that and identify that, call that out specifically in what you're writing and the photos and videos and audio that you're putting out there? And how can you leverage that to help people, help your message resonate with people who are in the market for what you're selling? So think about that. Hope that gave you some ideas as to music marketing. We'll keep diving into that kind of thing because this is honestly one of the most important things that they don't teach you in music lessons. How do I market and get the word out there about the amazing music that we put out? And I know that every single person listening to this podcast, I know that you're good enough. I know that you put out amazing music. I would love to listen to some of it, so please feel free to drop me a line, send me an email, jared@booklive.com. Join our Facebook group of gigging musicians. Just go on Facebook in the top right corner, search for the group Gigging Musicians. You'll find us right there. And we are still putting on that masterclass for how to be one of the top gigging acts in your city, how to move towards the pleasure of being one of the top gigging acts in your city while avoiding the pain of having to build a following. That is at booklivepro.com/masterclass. Check those things out, and I will catch you on the next Gigging Musicians podcast. Have a good one.